Hi, I'm Spaz, and I welcome you to another episode of But Is It Power Pop? Thank you for tuning in. Yes, today is one of those very special episodes where I have to sort of be serious because I'm approaching a subject that is very uncomfortable for me to talk about. Um, it's called vinyl LPs. That's right. I usually talk about CDs, which are these little ragamuffins here. But no, today I'm going to focus on LPs. But not LPs that you play. No, not long players that you play. I'm going to focus on long players, LPs, vinyl that you hang up on the wall in a frame. That's right. But is it Power Pop special episode? Framed LPs. That's right. Here we go. We're going to start off with a band that I remember reading in Trouser Press that they compared to, basically they called them the Irish Ramones. Of course, I love the Ramones at the time, and to hear another band play that kind of music was actually quite exciting for me. So saved up my allowance when this album came out. The first album from the Undertones. That's right, the Undertones. This album, actually, I ended up loving more than any Ramones album. I still love those Ramones albums, but I love this more. Maybe at the time, at least, this album felt like it was mine because none of my friends were listening to them. But yes, this was and remains a classic album that I will always stand by, beginning to end, top to bottom, forehead to butt. This is just a great record. Next up is an album that is perfect, even though it's flawed. Even though there's a song called Heaven on it that I don't like, it's still one of the most perfect albums that you could ever own. It is an album by a band called Squeeze, and it's called East Side Story. Boy, when Argy Bargy came out, I thought, no, there's no way that they can top this record. I don't think they did top that record. I think they put out a record that is just as great as Argy Bargy. Maybe, just maybe, on a good day, a little bit better. But this album here was absolutely stellar, just all over the map. Most of it produced by Elvis Costello, and all of it just yummy goodness, and it's going to give you a stomachache. It's so good. So I say, check out East Side Story, one of the finest albums. This is definitely in my top 20 albums of all time. I love this album to death. Next up, a Beatles-related band that I wanted to tell you about, that you all actually know about. This is an album, it's probably going to surprise people that this is my favorite album by them. The band is Badfinger. This I consider their Abbey Road. Wish You Were Here, my favorite Badfinger album. Joey, Tommy, Pete, and Mike. This was them at the peak of their powers. Sad to say that it was also their final album released before Pete Ham's tragic suicide. But this was an absolutely stellar album. Still, 44 years later? Still sounds fresh and amazing today. Chris Thomas's production, the band's arrangements, everything. This album is about as close to perfect as you're ever going to get. Next up is an album that absolutely, literally changed my life. By the time this album came out, I was buying punk and new wave and synth pop or whatever. I was buying all that stuff when I could afford it. Usually, probably with my allowance. But I was always buying major label stuff. And with the major label stuff, I knew that, hey, if a label, big company invested money into this band, then it must be good. The production must be good and blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, that was me at, 15 years old. I really didn't know better. But this album I just thought had a really cool cover on it, and I bought it, and it changed the way that I listen to music. It is The Last LA Explosion. This is the album that introduced me basically to the whole concept of independent labels. When this came out, this just, to me, it opened the floodgates and just said, okay, I'm going to try to listen to every independent label that looks interesting or that has a couple bands on it. So that that's why I got into Stiff Records and there was just so much stuff coming out. Bomp, of course, which is the label that put this out. But this is an absolutely stellar record, still one of my favorites. Is it power pop? It's got some power pop moments. It's got some psych pop moments. It's got some garage rock moments. It is just absolutely wonderful, and I recommend every one of you should own The Last LA Explosion either on LP or CD. I own it, and it's going to go up on my wall. I sort of look at these as sort of like photo albums. When I look at these, I go, "Oh, I remember being at Licorice Pizza, and this, some Steel Ace Band poster was above my head, and I was flipping through, and then I found this." Those are the kind of memories that I cherish more than those ones about naked hookers. Did I just say that out loud? Another great album, the Lambrettas. They were one of the big mod bands at the time. There was the Jam, Squire, the Chords, Secret Affair, just all great stuff. This is very well produced. Songs are 2-3 minutes long, catchy, snappy, smart. I was quite pleased when the CD version came out a couple years ago. There was a 2 CD version that combined both their albums and all the B-sides and stuff. And it actually, on the back of the CD, it used a quote from me from an All Music Guide review that I had written. And I was over the moon because I did not know that they were going to do that. Lambrettas, Beat Boys of the Jet Age. This is not power pop, but I think most of you are going to understand. Elvis Costello and the Attractions, Get Happy. That's all I really need to say. Great album cover, great album, Elvis Costello. But this right here, Get Happy. Hello, good night, nurse. Love you. This next album, not power pop, but there's a lot of links to power pop that I think a lot of you will understand when I show it to you. This is not the album that I got into the band on. Split Enz is the band. I got into them fully on True Colors. That was the first album that I bought. But I got into them with the single Icy Red, which was a year or two before that. And this album here is the album that had Icy Red. But the album hadn't been released in the U.S. at the time, so it was hard to get, so I had to get it as an import. By the time it came out as a domestic album a few years later, they'd gone back and they'd remixed and taken songs off and added songs and stuff. So this is the album that I love. I love any version of the album Frenzy. That's the name of it. I'm sorry. There's a hype sticker on here that I kept because I love to have hype stickers because it reminds me of buying the record. But the album's called Frenzy. This gentleman here is Neil Finn, later of Crowded House. This was actually his second album with Split Enz, but it's the first album where he actually wrote some of the songs and sang them. So this is if any of you are big Crowded House fans, this is the roots of Crowded House. Actually, believe it or not, the album is probably the most earthy and raw Split Enz record that you're ever going to find because they made it on a budget. And a lot of it, maybe was considered demo quality. But no, I mean, just the songs and the performances and just the voices are just amazing. So Split Enz Frenzy, my favorite Split Enz album. I first got into the Cars on the first album. Really, really dug most of the tracks on that album. But then I heard their new single called Let's Go, and for some reason that sold me on the Cars. I went out and bought it, and I bought the album Candy-O the day it came out. But no, there's no, whatever. Kind of bumpy. But about this album, the day it came out, and it still remains my favorite Cars album. One of my favorite albums of the era. Solid from beginning to end. Let's Go and All I Can Do and Got a Lot on My Head and Dangerous Type and just a lot of great songs on this album. Still remains just top of my list. There's a CD that just came out in 2017, which was digitally remastered with some bonus tracks along with the album Panorama as well. This next album is definitely not power pop, but it's pretty darn close. And I think when I show it to you, y'all gonna understand what I mean. It's More of the Monkees. Even though nowadays I prefer Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, and Jones, and some of the other albums, maybe I listen to the other albums more. This album, in my mind, so many memories come rushing back whenever I see this album cover. And of course, hear the songs. I'm a Believer and She and Mary Mary. This was a fantastic record. I still love that Monkees logo to this day. And but it may not be 100% power pop, but boy, that's good stuff. As a side note, there was a 3 CD Super Deluxe edition that just came out of this album. Limited edition, you better track it down. You can only order it online, so probably go to monkeys.com and Rhino, the Rhino website. But more of the Monkees. Power pop, such a lovely term, especially when you think of albums like this. 2020, debut album, Yellow Pills, Backyard Guys, Jet Lag, She's an Obsession, Tell Me Why. Every power pop person knows this album backwards and forwards. So if you're a power pop fan, you're going, yeah, I got that. But if you don't know this album, then you're not a power pop fan. You need to check it out. 2020. But yes, 2020 debut album. You really need to get it, and you need to snuggle with it. You need to hold it. You need to maybe burp it. Along those same lines, the Romantics debut album. When I Look in Your Eyes, still my second favorite romantic song, actually. I love When I Look in Your Eyes and What I Like About You on this album. But for some reason, just the bass line and stuff on Talking in Your Sleep is really what sells me on the Romantics these days. But this album, actually, it's autographed by 3 of the original members, Wally, Mike, and Rich, right there. Inside this LP is a set list signed by current drummer Brad Elvis. But anyway, this is a great record. Everybody knows it. It's just garage. It's power pop. It's great songs. It's a lot of energy, and you should own it. Finally, one of my favorite albums of all time, definitely top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, Yachts. SOS. This is actually just self-titled in the UK. One of my favorite albums ever in the history of the world. This album is kind of what made me take chances with bands, because I just looked at this and I thought, hey, these guys look kind of cool, but I wasn't exactly sure what they sounded like, but it just looked like a cool record. Plus, it was on Polydor, and I think I had a couple albums on Polydor, like maybe The Jam or something, and so I thought, oh, it's the same label as The Jam. I'm going to get my allowance here, and I'm going to buy this. Actually, no, I asked for this. I got this for my 16th birthday. I asked for my mom and dad to get it for me. I've loved this album for many, many, many decades. Basically, this is their first UK self-titled album with a couple songs matched and a couple of things, maybe slightly different mixes, and then, of course, different album cover and a different title. But this is, if you stumble across this in your vinyl LP searches, I highly recommend it. And that's it. These will eventually end up going on the wall, like up this way and then across the top of here, then maybe across the top of here. But you're not going to be able to see that unless you come over. And you need a special invitation. You need a "But Is It Power Pop" invitation. So maybe I'll get you one. I'll give you an invitation. And then you can come over and hang out. That'll be fun, right? And that's it with this episode of But Is It Power Pop? I'd like to express my heartfelt thanks for all the people that watch these videos, that like these videos, that pretend to like them, that don't watch them but say they watch them. I like to give shout outs. I mean, there's lots of people. I mean, Bruce Brodeen, the power pop legend, has watched and commented on some of these videos. A gentleman by the name of Tim Allen, no, not that one. Basically, he had a What Is It Power Pop marathon, and it's like I'm going like, wow, somebody's marathoning my videos just like I do, but I don't marathon my own. Don't worry about that. But yes, so many people have watched these. Matthew Street, of course, I've mentioned, and MC Pop or Mick Pop, or so much great stuff. Plus, there's Tim Elliott. I mean, there's Les Abramson. There's all these people on Facebook. Come join me on Facebook, too. We have a But Is It Power Pop Facebook page. That's it. Thank you for tuning into this very special episode. My heartfelt thanks to you. And until next time, smell you later.